Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're plunging into some really critical sources. These are excerpts from an exclusive interview with Emmanuel Macron.
This is right, following a major summit on Ukraine in Washington.
Exactly. And this isn't just about the headlines you might skim. It's really about the intricate, high-stakes dance of international diplomacy, European security.
And crucially, the pursuit of a lasting peace, not just any peace.
Right.
So our mission today, really, is to unpack the core concerns, the strategic approaches being discussed at the very highest levels. How do you secure not just peace, but a genuinely durable peace for Ukraine and, for Europe as a whole? We're going to dive into Europe's unique role, which seems to be evolving, the security guarantees they're seeking, and also Macron's very candid, almost stark assessment of Russia's current nature.
Yeah. Stark is a good word for it. So if you're looking to understand the, let's say, nuanced path forward, that delicate balance between diplomacy and deterrence, and what's really at stake for European security, you've definitely come to the right place. Let's get into it.
Okay, so Macron opens with something that sounds straightforward. Everyone wants peace, including President Trump.
Right.
But then he immediately flags this critical nuance. He says the concern is that peace shouldn't be precipitated if it lacks profound guarantees. That phrasing really struck me. It suggests something deeper than just stopping the fighting, doesn't it? What does he mean by needing profound guarantees?
It's a vital distinction, and he grounds it in recent history. He immediately brings up the bitter experience with the Minsk agreements.
Right.
Those earlier attempts at peace that tragically weren't respected.
Yeah.
The ink was barely dry before renewed aggression started.
Oh, right.
So for Macron, the core European work now is centered entirely on these security guarantees. It means ensuring that whatever agreement is eventually reached, Ukraine's territory can genuinely live without facing new Russian aggression. And by extension, the rest of Europe lives in peace. Because, as he puts it, Ukraine is the avant-poste, the frontline outpost of European security.
And he's crystal clear throughout the interview, isn't he? There's only one aggressor here, Russia.
Absolutely unambiguous on that point.
So given that context, what's the ultimate fear if this peace isn't robust? If those guarantees aren't truly profound, what's the worst-case scenario he's painting?
Well, he stresses that if peace simply means a capitulation of Ukraine, it would be, in his word, dramatic.
Dramatic.
And not just for the Ukrainians themselves, but profoundly so for Europeans. He paints a really vivid picture. He warns that such a scenario brings a nuclear-armed power, Russia, with an army he estimates at, 1.3 million men?
Yeah, at least.
And spending 40% of its budget on defense, it brings that power even closer to European borders.
That's a chilling thought.
He argues, pretty forcefully, that this would constitute an undeniable threat to our security, and potentially lead to the collapse of the international order that's been built over the last 70 years.
Wow.
So peace, yes, absolutely, but not at the expense of fundamental Ukrainian and European interests. It's about securing a stable future, not just hitting pause.
That makes perfect sense. Okay, so peace hinges on these profound guarantees. Macron actually outlines two distinct layers Europe is focusing on. I'd imagine a strong Ukrainian military has to be foundational, right? What does he identify as that absolute first, most important guarantee?
You've hit on it exactly. The primary guarantee, the one they're most actively working on right now, is indeed a robust Ukrainian army.
Robust meaning?
Well, he's quite specific. Several hundreds of thousands of men, well-equipped with defense systems of best standards, top-tier equipment.
Okay.
And he points to the last, 1,000 days or so as irrefutable proof that a strong, well-supported Ukrainian army can actually resist Russian penetration.
Yeah.
That's the baseline, the first line of defense.
Got it. So a strong Ukraine is layer one. But then he talks about the second layer, these reassurance forces. Now, for some listeners, that might immediately sound, well, concerning, like a precursor to direct conflict.
It's a fair question.
How does Macron clarify that these operations wouldn't be provocative? And what exactly is the strategic signal he's trying to send here?
It's a crucial distinction he tries to make. He says this involves countries like the British, French, Germans, Turks, others, being ready to lead operations.
Ready to lead operation.
But, and this is the key part, he's very careful to clarify, these would not be on the front line. They wouldn't be directly engaging.
Okay.
And not provocative in nature. Instead, think of them as reassurance operations in the air, at sea, on land, behind the front.
So presence, but not combat.
Essentially. The objective is what he calls strategic signaling. It's about clearly stating that durable peace in Ukraine is their subject too. It affects them. The real insight here, I think, is that this isn't about wanting to fight Russia directly. It's about drawing a very clear red line.
Okay, drawing that red line, let's unpack that. What does strategic signaling actually look like in concrete terms, if it's meant to be non-provocative but still effective? Does it boil down to the credible threat of a broader conflict if Russia does cross that line again, even after a peace deal?
That's exactly the ultimate goal. Deterrence and dissuasion. Macron is explicit about this. He says if Russia, after some kind of peace agreement is reached, were to return to what he calls the confines of Europe, basically, start trouble again and provoked, there would be a reaction.
A reaction.
In places that will have been defined. Pre-planned responses.
So this isn't improvisation.
No. He emphasizes this work has been meticulously planned by military chiefs of staff. The strategy is twofold. Deter through a powerful Ukrainian army, and combine that with the credible threat of a broader predefined European reaction if Russia were to overstep.
Yeah.
It's all about making the cost of renewed aggression unequivocally too high, raising the stakes.
Right, making Putin think twice or three times.
Precisely.
Okay, beyond these military and diplomatic assurances, a truly lasting peace, obviously, has to address the core conflict. And that inevitably brings us to the really thorny, painful question of territory. Concessions. How did Macron approach that sensitive issue?
Very carefully, as you'd expect. He acknowledges that ultimately Ukraine will make the concessions it deems just and good. It's their decision. But at the same time, he delivers a stark warning against recognizing rights where territories have been taken purely by force.
Because that sets a precedent.
Exactly. His concern is avoiding opening a Pandora's box, essentially legitimizing aggressive land grabs on the international stage, making it okay for others to do it.
Yeah, that's a dangerous path.
It's a very fine line, isn't it, between enabling a peace deal now and inadvertently setting a terrible precedent for the future.
Definitely a diplomatic tightrope. Okay, so Europe is developing its own strategy, its own guarantees. But we can't ignore the elephant in the room, or perhaps the major player in this whole geopolitical chess match, President Trump. Given his America First history, what role does Macron actually see Trump playing in these incredibly delicate peace negotiations?
Well, Macron's take might surprise some people. He confirms, quite directly, that Trump wants the peace in Ukraine.
Okay.
And adds, even more strikingly, that Trump dreams of this Nobel Peace Prize.
Interesting motivation.
Macron actually views this as, quote, a very good thing for us. He suggests Trump's readiness to commit his energy, his engagement, to a peace deal is a genuine asset.
So a potential alignment of interests, even if the motivations differ?
Potentially, yes. Though, as Macron says, it's complicated.
Yeah, it certainly sounds like a delicate situation. Macron himself calls it a ridgeline, extremely narrow path. So how does Europe and France specifically navigate that? How do they work with Trump's energy but still ensure their own interests, and crucially Ukraine's, are paramount?
He describes the whole thing as extremely complex, sensitive. You can almost hear the careful balancing act. He positions France in particular as playing a crucial role, essentially providing a counterbalance.
A counterbalance to what?
To prevent Trump, potentially, from ceding too much to Moscow. That's the stated concern.
I see.
So while Trump might be seen as the motor, the driving force pushing for talks, the Europeans are actively working behind the scenes to ensure the terms of any deal aren't unfavorable or, frankly, dangerous for European security.
So managing the process, essentially.
You could say that, guiding it, perhaps.
Yeah.
It's that diplomatic tightrope again.
Okay, with all these moving parts, the military readiness, the strategic signaling, the Trump factor, the European counterbalance, what are the concrete next steps? What's on the diplomatic calendar? What should we, be looking out for?
Macron anticipates a significant meeting. President Zelensky and Putin, together with President Trump and the Europeans. A multilateral summit.
Wow, okay. Any idea where?
He suggests it would need to take place in a neutral country, and he specifically advocates for Geneva in Switzerland.
Classic neutral ground.
Exactly. But crucially, the work on those security guarantees we discussed, that's being launched before this potential larger meeting.
So, laying the groundwork first.
Yes. He calls the upcoming 15 days absolutely critical.
15 days.
For finalizing the substance of these guarantees with the Americans, and importantly, for lifting ambiguities about whether President Putin genuinely wants peace this time.
Trying to gauge Putin's sincerity.
Right. The aim seems to be a bilateral meeting. First, perhaps Zelensky and Putin, then progressing to that larger multilateral summit maybe by early September.
A very ambitious timeline.
Very.
Now, Macron has spent, arguably, more time speaking directly with Vladimir Putin than almost any other Western leader. Hours and hours, different locations.
A unique perspective, certainly.
What's his deeply personal assessment, now that he's stating it more publicly, of Putin's nature and of Russia's long-term trajectory?
Well, he prefaces it carefully, saying he wouldn't use qualifications given his diplomatic position. He's still president of France, after all.
Understandable.
But then he delivers a very blunt assessment nonetheless. He notes that since about 2007, President Putin has rarely held his commitments.
Rarely held his commitments. That's quite a statement.
It is. He goes on to describe Russia as constantly a power of destabilization, a power that has consistently sought to revise borders to extend its power.
So it's a pattern of behavior he's identifying.
Yes, and the deeper insight here, I think, is that Macron isn't just describing the current war. He seems to be diagnosing a fundamental long-term shift in Russia's nature itself, one that, in his view, demands a complete recalibration of how Europe thinks about its own security.
So you're saying it's not just about this specific conflict, this temporary dispute, but a more fundamental, maybe ingrained approach to international relations that Macron sees in Putin's Russia.
Exactly. He suggests that when a political system like Russia's, with what he calls its profound culture inherited from the Soviet regime, engages so durably and makes so many sacrifices, pursuing this logic of expansion and revisionism, well, it's very hard to go back.
Hard to reverse course.
Extremely hard. He concludes quite starkly that Russia has become durably a power of destabilization, and therefore a potential threat for many of us. It really feels like a shift from perhaps earlier hopes of integrating Russia to now recognizing it as a persistent long-term challenge.
He uses some incredibly strong imagery later in the interview, too. He refers to Russia as an ogre and a predator.
Yes, very strong language.
What's the basis for that stark warning? Is it just rhetoric, or does he back it up? And what does it tell us about how Europe, or at least France, is now viewing Russia?
He does back it up with some hard numbers.
Yeah.
He points again to Russia's massive investment, that 40% of its budget going to defense.
Right.
And the sheer size of its army, over 1.3 million men. His point is, you don't make those kinds of investments unless you have certain intentions. He cautions unequivocally against naivete. He says a country like that will not just revert to a state of peace and become an open democratic system overnight. It's unrealistic.
So the predator and ogre language.
It's framing Russia as a persistent danger. An ogre at our doors, as he puts it. Now, he clarifies this doesn't necessarily mean France itself will be attacked tomorrow.
Okay.
But it's an unequivocal declaration that Russia is now viewed as a fundamental existential threat for the Europeans, a long-term reality they have to deal with.
That's a major shift in perspective.
It is. And he does add carefully that he says this with immense respect for the Russian people, their history, tradition, and leaders. He tries to frame it as a strategic assessment, not just an emotional condemnation.
Still a very powerful assessment. Wow, that really was a deep dive into Macron's perspective. It's quite candid, isn't it, on Europe's security challenge?
Incredibly candid.
It definitely shifts how you might view the path forward. We've heard his stark assessment, Russia as a predator, an ogre,
Right.
and this dual strategy for peace, that robust Ukrainian army backed by European reassurance forces.
The objective seems clearer than ever now. Deter, dissuade, and secure a peace that is absolutely not a capitulation for Ukraine or a strategic loss for Europe. The path involves these critical diplomatic meetings we talked about. But always, it seems, with this underlying understanding that a genuinely durable peace requires those profound guarantees and a very clear-eyed view of all the parties involved, especially regarding, the true nature of their strategic intentions. No more illusions, perhaps.
So wrapping up, what does this all mean for you, listening? Given Macron's firm belief that Russia has become durably a power of destabilization, an ogre at our doors that he says won't change overnight, what does durable peace truly signify in that context? How do nations balance that urgent need to end the conflict with the long-term reality of dealing with a neighbor that, in Macron's own words, rarely holds its commitments?
It's a tough question.
It really is. Definitely something for you to consider as these critical discussions unfold in the coming weeks and months.